The sun stood high and merciless over the dusty town of Red Hollow, making the wooden storefronts until they seemed ready to splinter into flame. It was broad daylight when the betrayal happened, bright, open, shameless daylight, when the law itself chose a side, and it was not the side of the innocent. 12-year-old Samuel Carter stood in the center of town, wrists bound, tears cutting clean trails through the dust on his cheeks. Around him gathered the townsfolk, shopkeepers, ranch hands, mothers shielding their children's eyes. They all knew the truth. Samuel hadn't stolen a thing, but truth meant nothing when Sheriff Wallace Grady spoke. Grady was a large man with a polished badge and a voice that carried authority like thunder. Beside him stood Victor Crow, the richest landowner in the territory, dressed in black despite the heat, gloves tight around greedy fingers. Crow claimed the boy had stolen a silver pocket watch. The watch had been found in Samuel's satchel. The case, according to the sheriff, was closed. Samuel's father, Thomas Carter, stepped forward, hat trembling in his hands. "My boy's no thief," he pleaded. "You know us. We've worked this land honest." Sheriff Grady didn't meet his eyes. "Evidence speaks louder than tears, Thomas." But everyone saw the exchange of glances between Crow and the sheriff. Everyone felt the silence heavy in their throats. The law had made its decision before the trial even began. They sentenced the boy to hang at sundown. And in that moment, standing at the edge of the crowd, a lone cowboy watched with eyes like tempered steel. His name was Elijah Boone. Elijah had ridden into town that morning under the clear blue sky, hoping for water and a hot meal. Instead, he found injustice dressed as authority. He had seen Crow before, in other towns, other disputes, always richer when he left than when he arrived. And he had seen men like Grady too, lawmen who forgot their oath the moment money whispered in their ears. As the noose was prepared in the center of town, Elijah stepped forward. "Mind if I see the evidence?" he asked calmly. Sheriff Grady sneered. "This ain't your business, drifter." Elijah's voice stayed level. "Justice is everybody's business." Crow's eyes narrowed. "You accusing the sheriff of something, cowboy?" "I'm accusing fear," Elijah replied. "This town looks scared, and scared folks don't speak truth." The tension tightened like the rope above Samuel's head. Grady reached for his revolver but stopped short. It was still daylight. Too many witnesses. "You got until sundown to prove otherwise," Grady said finally. "Then this boy swings." Elijah nodded once. That was enough. He spent the afternoon walking through Red Hollow, speaking quietly to shopkeepers, to stable boys, to anyone willing to risk whispering the truth. And slowly the story surfaced. Crow had been buying land, forcing families out. The Carters had refused to sell. A week later, silver went missing. A day after that, it was found in Samuel's bag. By mid-afternoon, Elijah rode out to Crow's ranch under the blazing sun. Ranch hands eyed him nervously as he dismounted. He walked straight into the barn and found what he expected. A stack of identical silver watches, each engraved with Crow's initials. Too many to count. One watch was missing from the row. Elijah held it up, dust glinting in the daylight. Manufactured guilt. He returned to town before the sun began its descent. The crowd had grown silent, shadows stretching long across the dirt. Samuel stood beneath the gallows, pale but brave. "Stop this!" Elijah called out, riding into the square. Grady's hand hovered near his gun. "Time's up." Elijah tossed the watch onto the ground at Crow's feet. Then another. And another. "Seems Mr. Crow misplaces these often," Elijah said loudly. "Enough to fill a barn." Murmurs spread like wildfire. Thomas Carter fell to his knees in relief. Crow's face darkened. Sheriff Grady looked trapped between truth and pride won. "You planted those!" Grady shouted. Elijah's voice sharpened. "Then search his ranch." In daylight, in front of the town, the people began to speak, softly at first, then louder. "Search it!" someone yelled. "Let's see the truth." Grady realized the tide had shifted. If he refused, his badge would mean nothing. Under the burning afternoon sun, they rode to the ranch together. And there, before the entire town, the silver watches were uncovered. Samuel was freed before sunset, but humiliation is a dangerous thing. And as the crowd celebrated, Crow leaned close to Elijah and whispered, "You've made an enemy today." Elijah didn't smile. "No," he said. I exposed one. That night, as the town slept under a quiet sky, Crow and Sheriff Grady met in secret. Justice had won the day, but vengeance was already saddling up. Morning came bright and golden over Red Hollow, but peace did not ride with it. Elijah woke to smoke. Thomas Carter's farmhouse burned against the pale blue sky, flames devouring wood in cruel daylight. Elijah spurred his horse hard, arriving as townsfolk formed a desperate line with buckets. The fire was no accident. It was too precise, too sudden. Inside the ashes they found Thomas Carter, gone. Samuel stood silent, shock replacing tears. His mother wept beside him. Sheriff Grady arrived late, offering hollow words and no arrests. Crow stood at a distance, untouched by grief. Elijah understood then. The law had not changed. It had merely paused. He knelt before Samuel. "I couldn't save your father," he said quietly. "But I can promise you this, I won't let his death be buried under lies." Samuel nodded, something hard forming in his young eyes. Elijah didn't wait for permission. By midday, under full sun, he rode out alone toward Crow's ranch. This time he wasn't looking for watches. He found armed men waiting. Bullets cracked through dry air, kicking up dirt around his boots. Elijah dove behind a water trough, returning fire. With steady hands, daylight offered no shadows to hide in, only courage and aim. One by one, Crow's hired guns fell or fled. Elijah moved through the ranch house like a storm finally unleashed. He found Crow in his office packing gold into a leather case. "You should have kept riding," Crow spat. "And you should have feared daylight," Elijah replied. Crow reached for a hidden pistol. He was fast. Elijah was faster. The shot echoed across the ranch, scattering birds into the sky. Crow fell, greed finally silenced. But justice wasn't finished. Elijah dragged Crow's ledgers into town by noon. Inside were records, bribes paid to Sheriff Grady, land stolen through threats, names of families forced out, evidence inked in Crow's own hand. The townspeople gathered again in the square, sunlight exposing every expression. Sheriff Grady tried to deny it, but the pages spoke clearly, and this time no one stayed silent. "You wore that badge for profit," Elijah said, voice carrying across the square. "You let an innocent boy hang for money." Grady's hand trembled. For the first time he looked small. The town voted then and there. The badge was stripped from him. He was arrested by the very deputies he once commanded. As Grady was led away, Samuel stepped forward. "Is it over?" the boy asked. Elijah looked around at the faces, no longer afraid, no longer silent. "It is now," he said. By late afternoon, under a calm and honest sky, Red Hollow felt different, lighter, as if the sun shone cleaner without corruption. Beneath it, Elijah prepared to ride out, as men like him always do. Samuel ran up to him. "Why help us?" he asked. Elijah adjusted his hat, eyes softening. "Because the law is supposed to protect the innocent, and when it forgets, someone has to remind it." He mounted his horse. The town watched him ride toward the horizon, sunlight blazing around him like a promise fulfilled. He didn't wait for thanks. He didn't wait for praise. He had come because justice called, and now justice had been answered. Red Hollow would remember the day the badge turned black and the cowboy who brought back its shine. The law had betrayed the innocent, but one cowboy rode for true justice, and in the full light of day justice prevailed.